These ignoramuses who couldn't point to the River Jordan if you showed it to them on a map, walk along the streets of America shouting, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Because they think the Palestinians are the underdogs in this weird version where they've mapped they've mapped a very specific version of American racial politics onto everything else in the world.
Well, how do you think Gays for Gaza will get on long term?
Well, the joke at the moment is that there aren't enough tall buildings in Gaza to throw Gays for Gaza off. But these people are, I've said very often, they're part of the same phenomenon as turkeys for Christmas and chickens for KFC. I mean, I'm fed up with these fringe idiot cases. I mean, they're so mentally defective, these people, and incredibly narcissistic, I can be queer and also celebrate Palestine. No, you fucking can't. Fuck off. Just, I can both argue for a two-state solution and also celebrate queerness and also not let myself down. No, you can't. No, you can't. You can't do all those things. At some point, you've got to choose.
I've got a video to show you. I'll show you this video.
Can someone please explain to me what this means? What does reproductive justice mean? Free Palestine. What does that even mean? Like, what does it mean? I'm not pretty sure. Abortions are illegal in Palestine unless it's a super medical emergency and the mother will die. From what I understand, actually a lot of Palestinians have to go to Israel to get the abortions they want. So what does this mean?
Yeah.
What? It's such a huge sign. There's 5 people holding this thing. It's massive.
That's very good.
That's Danny, the other half of Ryan, who wasn't there the day that you came.
Yeah, voice cast. Yeah,
reproductive justice means free Palestine. What do you think?
This is just incredibly ignorant young people in America who have been taught this weird version of the world where all oppressions interlink and interlock, and you're either the majority or the minority for minority rights and issues, or for majority rights and issues, and all minority rights and issues intersect and overlap, so that if you're queer, somehow no, it's not even that. These ignoramuses who couldn't point to the River Jordan if you showed it to them on a map, walk along the streets of America shouting, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Because they think the Palestinians are the underdogs in this weird version where they've mapped they've mapped a very specific version of American racial politics onto everything else in the world. It's the same thing people who talk about colonizers. I mean, there's this language of colonizers, apartheid, all this stuff. And they've just tried to map it everywhere. Well, I say everywhere. Actually, it's highly selectively. I mean, the people who are talking about Israelis being colonizers, when I saw that the other day on the streets of London, I thought, yes, if only there was a name for large numbers of people who came from outside to a country. And if only we could identify what they might be called in Britain. Oh, it would be immigrants, wouldn't it? Do you want to call immigrants colonizers in Britain? You sure you want to follow this logical conclusion? That talk about indigenous peoples. Oh, okay, great. Anyway, you don't want to apply that. Might there be a country or continent, say, Europe, where you don't want to start talking about the indigenous peoples? I notice that people don't. But if you do want to, welcome to hell. So, no, all that is happening is a very selective mapping of a particular interpretation of the world that very dumb people in America have tried to put on certain selective other cases. And it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. But may they never find out how much it doesn't work. May they never find out. I wish them bliss in their ignorance, because if their ignorance ever gets popped, it will be as brutal a day as can be imagined.
I've been thinking for a good while about how hypocrisy is a purpose-built tool for the internet to use. It's like catnip for the internet. It's the thing, because the reason it's so purpose-built, it's like one of those can you spot the difference competitions on a touchscreen iPad? This is what's on the left, this is what's on the right. And what you have is, here's something that someone once said, or a position that they used to hold, and here is what they hold now, or here is what they do in their real life, or here is whatever.
Yeah.
And it's kind of what you're identifying here, that you have a worldview which is self-contradictory. You're just using different words for one thing that is almost exactly the same for another thing.
Right.
And then complaining about this one, saying don't look over here at this one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everyone is inconsistent to some extent, and I don't think, by the way, that I mean, on hypocrisy, or for instance, I can see a scenario where somebody might say, "Oh, Douglas, you're hypocritical on this particular question." I might say, "Well, there are some things I think are even more important than not being a hypocrite, such as, I don't know, surviving." The worst thing about him is hypocrisy, and there's a weird. Hypocrisy is the easiest one to catch people on, is the truth of that.
Correct. Yes.
It's the easiest one to spot.
Yes.
You just, and they do it, as you say, on this is what this person said 20 years ago, this is what they say now. Okay. Again, human being in growing up, shocker.
Yes.
Yeah. People are allowed to evolve, they change their minds, they grow up. It'd be rather boring to say the same thing and think the same thing only for 70 years. But yeah, people find hypocrisy very, very easy to see, and it's about the only vice you can really catch somebody on, I think, which is if you say one thing publicly and do another thing privately. It's about the only one that people are really confident on. Or most other moral judgments, for better or worse, have sort of ebbed away, but people still are able to judge hypocrisy. But I think, I think there are worse things. I think not standing up for your loved ones, not standing up for your country, not standing up for yourselves in the face of horrible opposition from within and without are probably worse than hypocrisy.
I heard you say recently, you don't have to agree with everyone's principle to respect the principle they're sticking to.
Did I say that? Yeah, it sounds good.
Yeah, it's nice.
Okay. I didn't know I said that, but yeah.
You did.
Okay.
But the reason that I like that is I think it shows why the bravery conversation, or standing up for something that you believe in, is something that is at least then, if someone is prepared to stand up for whatever their beliefs are, that you can assume they're telling the truth, especially if they pay a high price for it. So one of the reasons why I have a good amount of faith that Sam believes the things that he says.
Yeah. Well, why would he not?
He pays an unbelievably high price to continue to flip-flop from one tribe to another tribe to another tribe.
I don't think it's an unbelievably high price, but a price, let's say.
Relatively high price, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, very early in some people's careers, or when people first make it to public notice, people say things like, do you really believe what you say? The answer to which for most people is, or ought to be, well, why would I say it if I didn't believe it? There are people who obviously do say stuff for lols or clicks or monetary purpose, but at a certain point, I mean, you got to accept that the person thinks what they think, and respect them for it, or at least do them the decency of believing that they mean it. And I think that even on people I disagree with wildly. I mean, it's such a boring argument, that one. Some people use it, particularly on the left, is like, I wonder if they actually even believe it. I think they don't. I think they're just doing it for money. Okay, well, that's an easier way to try to ignore them than actually trying to contend with the possibility that what they're saying is something they mean and believe, and trying to work out if there's anything in it. Much easier to say the person's only doing it because they're paid or something.